Imagine a freezing Ice Age dawn. A cave woman grips a sharpened spear, her children huddled behind her. Across the valley, another band of women approaches, faces painted with ash and determination. These weren't just survival struggles against the cold or predators. Sometimes, the fiercest battles were fought between tribes themselves. But why would women, often seen as nurturers, be at the center of conflict? The truth about cave woman wars is far more brutal and far more revealing than you've ever been told. Picture the Ice Age world, endless stretches of snow, frozen rivers, and winds that sliced through even the thickest firs. In this brutal environment, every bite of food, every flicker of fire, and every secure cave meant the difference between life and death. Now imagine two tribes stumbling upon the same valley, both starving, both desperate. Conflict wasn't optional, it was inevitable. We often think of prehistoric survival as men hunting mammoths or fighting predators, but in truth, women stood at the heart of these battles too. Cave women weren't passive bystanders. They were mothers, gatherers, healers, and defenders. And when another tribe threatened their children or their food supplies, they didn't just step aside, they stepped forward. Welcome to Before Flame. Fire. If you enjoyed traveling back in time with me, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next journey into our ancient past. Now I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? It'll make me so happy to see our community connecting from all around the world. And most importantly, if this video make you just imagine the Stone Age, or actually feel what it was like to live as a caveman or cavewoman, share your thoughts below. I'm excited to read them all. Wars between tribes didn't look like organized armies clashing on open fields. They were messy, raw, and personal. A single carcass of a bison might spark violence. A sheltered cave could ignite a deadly feud. Scarcity pushed people into brutal choices: fight, flee, or die. For cave women, fleeing often wasn't an option. Children couldn't outrun hunger or predators, and so they fought. But survival wasn't just about swinging clubs or hurling rocks. Women fought with strategy. They knew the terrain intimately, where snow drifts hid, where rivers could be crossed, and where ambushes could succeed. They fought not only for survival in the present, but for the survival of generations yet to come. So, why did cave women go to war? Because the Ice Age left no room for mercy. When survival hung by a thread, even the fiercest nurturers became warriors. In the Ice Age world, children weren't just loved, they were the tribe's future, its hope, its very reason for enduring the cold. Every infant carried the weight of survival, and every mother carried the burden of protecting them at any cost. For cave women, war wasn't about conquest or glory. It was about protection. Imagine a storm raging outside a cave while a rival tribe lurks nearby. The men may be away hunting, leaving women to guard the young, the elders, and the fire. If intruders pushed into their shelter, it was the women who stood between danger and the tribe's most vulnerable. Their weapons may have been simple: sharpened bones, flint blades, even burning sticks snatched from the fire, but their resolve was unshakable. Fierce maternal instinct drove many of these battles. To lose a child wasn't only a personal tragedy, it was a blow to the entire tribe's survival. A baby represented years of care and the promise of another hunter, another gatherer, another guardian for the future. That meant cave women couldn't afford hesitation. They would fight with a desperation born from love and necessity. But protection extended beyond the walls of the cave. Women often coordinated group defenses, warning each other of threats, creating signals for danger, and working together to shield the young. Their sense of community transformed defense into survival strategy. In these moments, the cave woman wasn't just a caregiver, she was a warrior. Her hands may have rocked a cradle made of furs, but those same hands could strike hard when danger threatened. In the Ice Age, protection and war walked hand in hand. When we picture prehistoric battles, we often imagine brute force, clubs smashing against shields of bone, warriors clashing in chaos. But for cave women, survival demanded something different: strategy. Cave women were not only fighters, but tacticians. They knew the land more intimately than anyone: which ravine hid natural traps, where ice was thin enough to break beneath enemy feet, which forests offered cover for ambush. In many conflicts, strength alone didn't win the day. Knowledge of terrain, timing, and cunning turned the tide. Some accounts from archaeology and anthropology suggest that women may have played roles in organizing defenses, setting ambushes, and even deciding when to retreat. For example, scattering sharp stones at cave entrances, digging pits to slow intruders, or even using fire strategically. Smoke to choke, flame to scare predators and humans alike. These weren't random acts. They were clever uses of limited tools in desperate times. Psychological warfare also came into play. Rival tribes sometimes clashed over hunting grounds, and intimidation mattered. Cavewomen's voices carried in chants, cries, and songs that could shake morale or mask movement. Imagine the eerie echo of a dozen women calling out in unison. To understand cavewoman wars, we first need to rethink what we mean by weapons. In the prehistoric world, there were no blacksmiths forging swords, no armies marching with shields. Instead, survival tools became instruments of war. The flint knife, for example, was as much a weapon as it was a tool for scraping hides. Small, sharp, and easily carried, it could cut through flesh with brutal efficiency. Spears were another staple, often thought of as hunting tools for mammoth or bison, but just as effective against rival tribes. These weren't sleek or polished weapons, but fire-hardened sticks tipped with stone or bone, thrust with desperate precision. Clubs and hand axes also played a role. A heavy branch, stripped of bark, became a crushing weapon in close combat. A stone axe, designed for chopping wood, could split bone just as easily. These tools didn't need elegance, they needed force. And then there was fire. Torches weren't only for light, they became shields against predators and enemies alike. A flaming branch could blind, burn, or terrify, buying precious seconds in a clash. Fire also had symbolic weight. To hold it was to hold power, dominance, and survival. For cave women, every object had dual meaning. A basket carried food but could also hold stones for throwing. A grinding stone, usually for plants, could smash skulls. This adaptability shows that warfare wasn't about strength alone, it was about resourcefulness. Weapons weren't crafted in blacksmith forges, they were born in daily life. And in the hands of a cave woman, even the simplest tool could become the edge between life and death. Beyond spears and axes, cave women wielded weapons that weren't made of stone or wood at all. Their most powerful arsenal was often knowledge of land, plants, and strategy. This was the kind of weaponry that didn't clash in battle but won wars quietly, before the first blow was ever struck. Consider poison. Archaeological evidence hints that some tribes used plant-based toxins to coat arrow tips or spearheads. Cave women, as gatherers, were the ones most familiar with the flora around them. They knew which berries killed, which roots paralyzed, and which leaves burned the skin. A small dose of poison could turn a simple arrow into a deadly surprise. Traps were another hidden form of weaponry. Pits lined with sharpened stakes, snares made from twisted vines, or even carefully positioned rocks could cripple enemies before combat even began. Many of these tricks drew directly from hunting techniques. Only this time, humans were the prey. Cave women, with their sharp observational skills, often played a vital role in setting and maintaining these survival snares. Even the environment itself could be turned into a weapon. Fires were set intentionally to drive predators or enemies away. Loose stones at a cliff's edge could be pushed down upon an unsuspecting rival tribe. Snow, ice, and even water sources were manipulated, sometimes guarded fiercely or poisoned to deny others their use. What this shows us is that cavewoman wars were rarely about brute force alone. They were about control, of resources, of terrain, of fear. A spear might win a fight, but strategy won survival. And in that domain, women were far from passive. They were tactical minds shaping the battlefield in ways that often went unseen. If the spear was the hand of battle, then fire was the soul of war. Cave women understood this better than anyone. Fire wasn't just warmth or light, it was power, terror, and dominance. Entire conflicts could be decided by who controlled the flames. In raids, torches were not only weapons to burn shelters but also symbols of intimidation. Flames danced in the dark, casting terrifying shadows, making small groups seem like vast armies. Fear itself became a weapon, carefully nurtured and deployed. A well-timed howl in the night, the clattering of stones, or the echoes of drums could shatter the nerves of an opposing tribe before any physical clash. Many scholars believe women played a role in these psychological tactics, orchestrating rituals, chants, or even painting their bodies with ash and ochre to appear otherworldly, invoking the spirits of ancestors to terrify rivals. And then there were the stories. Oral traditions weren't just entertainment, they were tools of power. Legends of fierce women warriors, of cursed lands, or of ancestral vengeance could deter rivals without a single spear being raised. Words, when wielded properly, became as sharp as flint. What's striking is how much of this was about the mind, not the muscle. Cave women weren't merely caretakers in times of conflict. They were architects of fear and guardians of fire, shaping outcomes in ways less obvious but no less decisive. Wars weren't only fought in the open, with blood and steel. They were waged in the shadows, in the mind, and in the night. And in this unseen battlefield, cave women held a mastery few give them credit for. War, even in the prehistoric world, didn't end when the fighting stopped. For cave women, the aftermath was often the most grueling part. When the spears were lowered and the flames died, someone had to deal with the wounds, the hunger, and the grief left behind. And that burden almost always fell hardest on women. Bodies battered in combat needed tending, and with no doctors or medicine as we know them today, healing was in the hands of those who knew the herbs, the poultices, and the rituals passed down through generations. Cave women gathered plants to reduce swelling, stitched wounds with sinew, and used fire-heated stones to sterilize injuries. In this way, their knowledge often determined who lived and who died long after the fighting was over. But healing wasn't only physical. The psychological scars of war, the loss of kin, the fear of another raid, the exhaustion from endless vigilance, weighed heavily on the tribe. Women often became the stabilizers, singing lullabies to restless children, telling stories that reforged a sense of hope, and performing ceremonies meant to drive away the lingering spirits of violence. Food, too, was a pressing concern. Wars disrupted hunts, scattered supplies, and left survivors scrambling to feed themselves. Cave women bore the responsibility of rationing whatever was left, stretching scarce resources to keep children alive through the long, cold nights. In many ways, survival after war was as brutal as the conflict itself. And in that long silence after battle, cave women became not only caretakers but rebuilders of life. They patched wounds, mended spirits, and ensured the tribe could rise again, ready, if necessary, to face the storm of violence once more. After the dust settled and the echoes of war faded, the real work of survival began. Cave women were often the backbone of this reconstruction, stepping into roles that extended far beyond tending the wounded. Shelters had been destroyed or weakened, supplies looted, and the once familiar rhythms of daily life thrown into chaos. It fell to women to restore what was lost, often while under the lingering shadow of fear. Using knowledge of the land, they repaired caves, reinforced shelters with branches and animal hides, and created windbreaks to shield the tribe from the relentless elements. Every choice mattered. A poorly patched roof could mean frostbite, a mismanaged fire could invite predators. The survival of the group relied not on brute force alone, but on the ingenuity and endurance of these women. Food storage and hunting strategies had to be recalibrated. Cave women led small foraging parties to collect roots, nuts, and berries, sometimes venturing into areas still scarred by conflict. They organized communal hunts when it was safe, teaching younger members the skills needed to ensure the tribe's next meal. These acts were not simply tasks, they were lifelines, keeping the community from collapsing under the pressure of scarcity. Social cohesion was equally critical. Women mediated disputes, comforted grieving families, and maintained the oral traditions that bound the tribe together. Through songs, stories, and ceremonies, they preserved a sense of identity and continuity, a reminder that even after the chaos of war, life could endure. In essence, rebuilding was not just about survival, it was about preparing for the next challenge. Cave women transformed chaos into structure, fear into resilience, and loss into continuity, proving that their strength extended far beyond the battlefield. The scars of war were visible not only in the landscape, but also on the faces and bodies of those who survived. Yet, the resilience of cave women ensured that these marks became symbols of endurance rather than defeat. They passed down lessons hard-learned in the heat of battle: where to find shelter, how to read the signs of predators, and which alliances were worth trusting. These lessons shaped the tribe's culture, ensuring that future generations were better prepared for the harsh realities of the Ice Age. Beyond physical survival, the emotional and social legacy of cave women was profound. Their leadership in the aftermath of conflict fostered unity, teaching younger members that strength came not only from muscle but from cooperation, empathy, and vigilance. Children learned through observation and participation, absorbing the courage and strategy their mothers demonstrated. These experiences were the foundation of a communal intelligence that allowed small tribes to thrive despite a hostile world. Ceremonial acts, like mourning rituals for those lost and celebrations of survival, became essential threads in the tribe's social fabric. Cave women ensured that the memory of the fallen was honored, creating a sense of continuity that extended beyond immediate survival. These rituals reinforced the values of protection, loyalty, and resilience, embedding them into the very identity of the tribe. Ultimately, the aftermath of Cavewoman wars highlighted a critical truth. Victory was not measured solely by conquest but by the ability to rebuild, nurture, and protect life. The courage and wisdom of these women rippled through time, shaping the evolution of human society in ways often overlooked. In the harshest of conditions, they became the true keepers of civilization, architects of survival whose legacy outlasted the battles themselves. The story of Cavewoman wars is more than a tale of bloodshed and survival. It's a story of resilience, strategy, and the quiet heroism often hidden from history. These women were not mere bystanders. They were leaders, protectors, and visionaries who shaped the fate of their tribes through courage, intelligence, and unyielding determination. Their struggles remind us that survival in the prehistoric world was never just about strength. It was about adaptability, community, and the ability to endure against overwhelming odds. The lessons they left behind, how to care for the vulnerable, defend the group, and rebuild after conflict, echo through time, influencing how humans cooperate and thrive even today. In studying their lives, we discover a truth that transcends the Ice Age. True power is measured not only by conquest but by the ability to protect, nurture, and preserve life. Cave women may have fought wars, but their greatest victories were in the survival and continuity of their people, leaving a legacy of courage and wisdom that continues to inspire.